What's up, Duval? It's your favorite Jaguar, number 22, Bucky Brooks, and this is Believe in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to all things Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm excited coming off of a long weekend where I didn't get a chance to talk to you guys on Friday, but we're back at it on Monday. And today we want to continue our series, just kind of previewing the squad. We're going to focus on the bigs. That means the offensive and defensive linemen. In coaching terms, sometimes they call those guys the big skills. So we're going to take a deep dive into those position groups, talk about the pros and cons of the personnel that is in place and how it's going to impact the Jaguars this season as we look ahead to 2024. But first, we're going to talk about one of our sponsors, Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, right to the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads while games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online Consudo, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our 150 plus slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus. So look, man, make sure you get over there, support our sponsor, Bet Online. Pretty cool what they have going on. But what's really cool in terms of what we have going on is what the Jaguars have done throughout the offseason to really build up what we think are the most important positions on the team, the offensive and defensive lines. When you look at the teams that play long in the postseason, the teams that dominate within the trenches, and feel really good about like what the Jaguars have done to kind of fortify the situation on both sides of the ball. And I'll say it, look, I'm admitted a homer, so I'm always going to look at it through maybe positive, like rose-colored lenses. But I really feel good about this year's team, and I think people are sleeping on the Jaguars as they begin to kind of predict what's going to happen. One of the reasons why I think people are sleeping on the Jags is because last year, let's be honest, like the offensive line did not perform to the level of expectation. And because the offensive line had some troubles, it impacted the rest of the team. You talk about Trevor Lawrence being a little up and down, particularly last half of the year. You think about the running game not being able to really get on track the last half of the year. That was directly related to the offensive line and the way they didn't perform well at the point of attack. This year, I'm more optimistic that the offensive line is going to perform well, not only because of a new addition or two, but really just hoping that the continuity of the unit allows the group to play as one, as opposed to 5 individuals at the line. So when we think about the proposed starting lineup, and we'll just kind of go from right to left when it comes to right tackle to left tackle, let's think about Anton Harrison, Brandon Sheriff, Mitch Morse, Ezra Cleveland, and then Cam Robinson. I'm really optimistic about that offensive line because I think you have a mix of veteran experience and leadership. You have a mix of strength, power, explosiveness. You have athletic guys on the edges, which are essential to be able to deal with the edge rushers that you face in the AFC and beyond. And then I think most importantly, you have a key guy in the middle in Mitch Morse, who not only brings the physicality, toughness, high IQ, but he brings that savvy that you need if you're going to be a team that makes a legitimate run in the postseason. And we'll talk about Mitch Morse because I want to work from inside out, because a lot of the problems that we saw last year with the Jaguars started just like that, from inside out. Luke Fortner, young player, started for 2 years, but really, really struggled at the point of attack. Some would say lack of strength, lack of athleticism, lack of size, whatever it was, he was overpowered on the inside. And the problem with like Fortner being overpowered on the inside, you got to think when you're building your team, old school philosophy is build it right down the middle. You want your best players, your strongest players right down the middle of the field, particularly on defense. So when you think about defensive tackle, Mike, linebacker, free safety, you want those guys in the middle because those are the positions that really dictate how the game is decided. Well, when you struggle with Fortner at center, and then you have an older player who's on the downside of his career in Brandon Sheriff, now you have a big liability right in front of Trevor Lawrence. And for quarterbacks, the worst place to be impacted is right up the gut because that pressure is right in their face and it prevents them from really being able to go through their progressions in a comfortable manner. When you're getting pressure off the edges, look, you can teach your quarterbacks to step up, to move, to evade and elude rushes, but right up the middle, man, that is right in the quarterback's lap. It prevents them from really getting off. And then in the running game, when you're not able to control the point of attack right in the middle. Now it changes the way that the running backs, Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, Dearness Johnson, the way they have to kind of find the holes at the line of scrimmage. Penetration prevents them from having positive plays. The negative plays push you behind the chains. And now you have tackles for loss that are forcing long yardage situations, which then impacts the way that you call the game if you're Doug Peterson or Press Taylor. So a lot of the issues, and you're not singling one person out, but a lot of the issues are the inability to control the game from inside out. Mitch Morse addition coming over from Buffalo gives them a chance to address that. He should upgrade that situation and allow them to maybe get into the flow and maybe perform like this offense has been expected to perform over the last year or so, when we thought this team would be a team that would light up scoreboards all over the league. Another part of the struggles that I'm optimistic will be shored up is, look, Cam Robinson being out last year, 8 games, really hurt the team. You can say a lot of things about Cam Robinson, but being on the sideline and watching Cam Robinson, to me, he's kind of the heartbeat of that offensive line. Everyone else is more quiet, more to themselves. He's a very vocal leader. He brings the swag. If you see him with the sweet towel hanging down out of the unit, like, he has some of that juice that you need to have. And even though, look, we all like our offensive lines to be a little more blue collar, a little more rugged, maybe kind of under the radar when it comes to like their swag. To me, I think this team feeds off his energy when he's there. When I see him at the game and he's engaged and he's in it, man, look, this team plays different. When he runs on and off the field, like, he gives them a different level of confidence, the swagger, like they go toe to toe. We saw how he's been unafraid to kind of challenge some of the opponent's toughest guys. He has that. He's not afraid to mix it up. And to me, on an offense that is full of nice guys, which you love having. I love high character football guys. Like, you need some edginess. Cam Robinson gives this unit the edginess. It's really important for him to not only be back and available to avoid the injury bug. And look, the suspension certainly impacted him. He needs to be on the field all 17, because if Cam Robinson is on the field all 17, this offensive line is one of the better groups in the league. And I know, like, that is saying something when we think about the better offensive lines in the league. But yeah, when Cam Robinson is playing well and Anton Harrison continue to take a step in his development, with Ezra Cleveland, who really shored up the situation when he came over via trade, like, this offensive line has an opportunity to be a better offensive line if they gel and if they are together for the majority of the season. You feel really, really good about this starting unit. But it's not only the starters where the optimism should spring from in terms of this team and this unit performing better. It's some of the key backups. And probably the most valuable backup that the Jaguars have right now is Walker Little. Walker Little is a swing tackle, a guy who can play on the right or the left. He filled in last year for Cam Robinson, did a really solid job. And in fact, I mean, I think the conversation and the expectation for most of the year was that Walker Little was going to slide into Cam Robinson's spot at left tackle. Cam Robinson potentially would be a salary cap casualty, and then the Jaguars would move on with Little occupying that left tackle spot. Funny thing happened along the way. The salary cap, the value rose, and it made it where, look, the Jaguars could keep Cam Robinson in the fold. That said, the Jaguars are a team that has 6 starters. You know, Walker Little, to me, is good enough to be considered a starter, and you should consider him as a starter. And I think you might see the Jaguars find different ways to get him involved in the action. Maybe they use some 6 offensive lineman sets where he basically acts as the tight end to give them a little sturdier presence in the running game. Maybe his role is just to be the swing tackle that fills in case of emergency at either tackle spot. I would say that, like, you should also consider him, because he's so good. Maybe he is a guy that could be the first man off the bench at any spot, and maybe he does play some guard in case there's an injury to Brandon Sheriff or Ezra Cleveland or those things. At the end of the day, most offensive line coaches want to put their best 5 on the field. To me, Walker Little should be in the conversation to be in that best 5, even though right now I had him slotted as the 6th best offensive lineman on the team. Regardless, I think there's some optimism that he can be a guy that can come in and make a contribution if needed. And I think he will be needed at some point this season. I would expect him to play well, particularly it's contract. He wants to make sure he puts himself in a position to get paid in Jacksonville or elsewhere. That's why he needs to play a really, really big role. Luke Fortner, I don't think you can necessarily give up on the young guy. You invested the top pick in him, but he had to play better, and he hasn't played better. So what you're hoping is that in watching and learning from Mitch Morse as his backup, he learns the tricks of the trade to be able to mask some of his deficiencies at the point of attack. If he does take the coaching and take the mentorship well, who's to say that in a year or two he may not find his way back into the lineup? He's still valuable as a center. We all know that the game starts and it begins with the snap. You have to have someone at the point of attack who can get it done. In a pinch, he certainly has shown that he can get it done, even though some on the other side would say that he has been more so the weak link on the offensive line. Another key player that we want to talk about, Tyler Shadley, veteran player, played a ton of games, experience. You can throw him in the pinch. Doesn't need a lot of practice reps to be able to execute and play well. He is a very, very key player. Cooper Hodges is a young player that is on the rise, on the come. Former seventh round pick in 2023. Showed some promise. I think you want to continue to build on that. We want to keep an eye on him throughout training camp to see if he is a guy that you can project eventually being a starter down the line. And then when it comes to, the draft pick, Dylan Foster from Missouri coming over, fourth round pick, a little more of a developmental player, but you like it. And the thing that you like about him is he kind of fits what the brand is now in Jacksonville. Bigger, more physical, stronger, being able to dominate within the trenches. Look, he's a massive man who shows some promise at Missouri. You want to continue to build upon that. Now, there's some other guys that will be in the conversation, some other guys that are vying for some roles. But right now, I gave you 10 guys. When you think about the number of players that you normally keep, you probably 9, 10, with 8 being game day dresses in terms of guys that dress out on game day. Like right now, there won't be a lot of spots available to some of the other guys competing, but you never know because performance and production can change anything. And so we'll give the training camp to begin to decide and determine which guys kind of stay up and which guys kind of go by the wayside. On the other side of the ball, I think there's a lot of excitement and rightfully so about what this defense can be and why this team is going to be a much better team than some imagine. I think it starts right at the line of scrimmage. When you look at what the Jaguars have in terms of just the body type, the scout in me loves the size, the length, and the overall physicality of the unit. When you've heard Trent Baalke and Ethan Watt talk about this team, they've talked about it repeatedly: bigger, stronger, more physical. There's a feeling, I believe, that the Jaguars got bullied in some of those contests against the better teams in the league. And the only way you change that is to upgrade the size and physicality that you have in the trenches. We can talk about the offensive line, but let's be real. The defensive line sets the tone for how teams view your squad. And when I look at this unit, particularly the projected starters, Trayvon Walker, RobertsonHarris, Eric Armstead, and Josh Allen, common denominator, supersized human beings, great length, plays with a level of physicality that you absolutely love. And now it's about them getting to the next level so they can play fast, they can play free, and they can dominate the game the way that the Jaguars need them to dominate the game at the line of scrimmage. Josh Allen he's the face of the franchise. He signed a big blockbuster deal, and he should, because coming off the year that he had 17 plus sacks, being able to dominate and doing it in a contract year, it speaks a lot about his consistency, his disruptive nature, and his ability to get it done when all the pressure was on him to play at a high level. But now that you've done it once, the expectation is you have to be able to do it again. And the reason why you have to do it again, because now you're paid like a franchise player. So the production has to be that of a franchise player and beyond. He has put it out there. He thinks that he should be vying for the Defensive Player of the Year award. Well, when you put those kinds of things out there, that's great, because now you're meeting the expectations that everyone outside is going to have on you after you get a contract that you got. So now I would expect to see him dominate the game. And he has to do it not only just with his presence, but the production also has to show up. So when you have a 17 sack season, the natural expectation has to be double digits in some way, shape, or form. The only way to kind of confirm or validate his disruptive nature and dominance is to be able to put up 10 plus sacks. That has to be an annual thing for a player as gifted as Josh Allen. Kept the same routine, went to Arizona, continued to work on the skills. Love that about him. What I also love is the guy that he's playing opposite, Trayvon Walker, is beginning to come into his own as a playmaker off the edge. Last year, 10 sacks. Continue to maybe prove some of the naysayers wrong when they talked about the lack of pass rush ability, not being able to kind of get it done as the traditional number one overall pick. But when you see him, and I said this To me, when he was coming out of college, I felt like he was going to be more in line of being a Jadeveon Clowney type, more so than a pure pass rusher off the edge, meaning his disruptive nature was going to impact the team as a run defender and as a sack artist. Well, that is coming true. He can dominate the game, and there's more freedom this year to maybe play him even inside as an inside pass rusher in nickel situations to allow him to dominate overmatched guards at the line of scrimmage. He is joined by Eric Armstead, who comes over from the San Francisco 49ers. He's a big get because the length, the explosiveness that he brings, but the professionalism. This is a guy, when you talk to the people in San Francisco, they loved how he took his job seriously, how he came to work every day, how he showed up, how he set the tone for his teammates. Well, that is exactly what the Jacksonville Jaguars needed. And I'll be honest, like knowing this team well and knowing how this team has been in years past, Eric Armstead signing reminds me a lot of what Calais Campbell used to bring as kind of like the old head in the middle of the defensive line. Professional, knows how to get it, veteran experience, but also has the game where he can get and command the respect of his teammates. Eric Armstead is huge. Those three players, Walker, Armstead, and Allen, that is a rock solid defensive line. That gives you the optimism. The X factor in this, I would say, is RobertsonHarris. RobertsonHarris is a guy who was a bit of a disappointment last year because he didn't dominate at the line of scrimmage like you would want. He's a guy that is a body beautiful type. I mean, he is massive at the point of attack, long arms, big hands. He has the physical tools to really dominate. He just doesn't do it consistently. What you're hoping, if you're the Jaguars now, is that a little peer pressure kicks in. Because when you put a player in a room full of alphas who are intensely competitive, who are insanely driven to dominate, you have no choice but to either raise your level of performance or you fall by the wayside. RobertsonHarris, he has to meet his peers where they're at for this defense to play at their potential. But if he doesn't do it, what I like is that the Jaguars have backstopped that position with guys that are certainly capable of being able to challenge and push him. We can talk about Devon Hamilton, and hopefully Devon Hamilton has dealt with a bunch of different ailments and illnesses and injury issues that have prevented him from being the guy that flashed early in his career. Hopefully he can get back to form and be a guy that can play over the nose. And so if you don't like what you're getting from RobertsonHarris, you put Devon Hamilton in, and look, two dogs, one bone, compete for it, and the best player gets most of the reps. I'm hoping that plays in fruition because competition sometimes can bring out the best in everyone that is engaged in the competition. But it extends beyond that. Mason Smith coming over from LSU, second round pick. And I'm talking to people down at LSU. They talk about how insanely talented he is. And if the light ever goes on, you're talking about a guy who has Pro Bowl potential. The upside is through the roof. He has the size, he has the strength, he has the physicality, and he flashes the disruptive skills that you're looking for at the potential. But the thing that separates the good players from the great players in this league, consistency. Can he consistently be a guy that dominates at the point of attack? That's what everyone wants, because as a rookie, you don't expect him to come in and dominate right away, but you would like to see him by the end of the season begin to make some of those contributions as a guy that is a disruptive force at the point of attack. Extends beyond that. His teammate, Jordan Jefferson, a run stopper, a guy who transfers from West Virginia, goes to LSU, makes his plays. He's a bully at a point of attack. The Jaguars are in need of a plugger. Look, man, you thought Fotakasi would give you that last year, but he didn't. He was a disappointment. Now you're hoping that you can find that in this rotation with the young guys that you're talking about. Jordan Jefferson is one of those guys that you're hoping can be a guy that can kind of bull at the line of scrimmage and do some of those things. And so the young players you're really optimistic on. But let me talk about the young edge players who also could play a role. Didn't get a chance to talk about Yasir Abdullah, but Yasir Abdullah is interesting because he's an energizer bunny off the edge. He has the first step quickness and athleticism to be disruptive, to live in the backfield. You just need to see it consistently. And he is someone that you want to keep an eye on in training camp, because if he flashes during the preseason games, there's certainly a way for him to get on the field as a situational pass rusher that allows you maybe to kick Trayvon Walker inside. Also, Miles Cole, the rookie from Texas Tech, has that production there, has length, has size, really intriguing, more of a developmental prospect, but keep your eye on him, because if he can develop into someone that you can see or envision being a guy that can jump in the rotation, you keep him around, you let him learn, you let him either start on the practice squad or as a backup that plays special teams, and you hope that that time allows him to develop into being a contributor. Those are the things that you're hoping for if you're the front office. Lastly, it comes to the veterans, right? They're two guys that you want to watch throughout the course of training camp. Not only if they can fill key roles as backups, but what they kind of give you on special teams. That'll be Adam Gotsis, and then that would be Travis Gibson. Veteran players that are projected as key backups, but they're also going to have to do other things in the kicking game to be able to get a jersey each week. When we're thinking about those guys, look, they're going to be overshadowed by the young guys and what the young guys are doing. But just know this: one of the things that Doug Peterson wanted to put out there is he wanted a team that was more professional and more prepared to play in the postseason. Sometimes older guys understand the urgency and the intensity that's needed to excel in those environments. That's where Gotsis and Gibson play in. Their experience, their I would say game day reps over time gives them a chance to be contributors. And as we're looking at the Jaguars and we're talking about just dominating at the point of attack, really, this season will go as the bigs go. If the bigs dominate at the line of scrimmage, the Jaguars are going to accomplish all the things that they want to accomplish as a team that has playoff aspirations, maybe even title hopes. But it's going to start at the line of scrimmage. How the bigs play will determine how well the Jags are able to kind of close in on that goal. So that's the podcast for the day, taking a look at the big guys at the point of attack. Make sure you continue to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Let's continue to expand and build up this Jaguars community. It's going to be fun. This is going to be a great ride as we get into training camp and start having these regular conversations over the course of the season. Look, I want to make sure that you guys tune in and check out all the things that we have on the Believe Network. Come back next time. Believe in Jaguars. I think I'm going to post another podcast on Wednesday. Talk to you then.